Okay, guys, we're here. The session about crypto education and mainstream adoption dives us into why clear communication and building trust are essentials for bridging the next billion users into Web3. And yeah, guys, if you're passionate about closing educational gaps and simplifying crypto for everyone when it's very needed, this talk is perfectly designed for you. Please join me in welcoming Scott.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good morning, Scott. And
Yeah,
the stage is yours.
good morning. I appreciate it. Yeah, so exciting things. I actually was part of this program 2 years ago. So I spoke on mainstream adoption for Bitcoin or Blockchain Professionals Day in 2023. So what I did was I kind of took that previous presentation and kind of look back at it and see, hey, where have we come in the last 2 years as far as like where do we also need to go? Um, a little bit about me. I started in like the hospitality, tourism, food and beverage industry, and then transitioned into marketing and marketing agency, social media type work. And now I've been full time crypto for probably 4 to 5 years now, and do a lot of marketing consulting and worked with a lot of different projects. So I have a unique client facing perspective of adoption and onboarding people into crypto. And while some of the presentations y'all have had are amazing of the tech behind it, but I think we have this learning gap, this bridge between this ever evolving technology and what this technology can do, but how does it fit the day-to-day average person, and how do we get to that point where you know the adoption and day-to-day use of crypto, blockchain, web3, all these wonderful technologies. So I'm going to just jump right in. As far as like what is it we're actually you know like how are we actually going to define this, and kind of an overview of what we'll talk about. So I use the word we in this title, the introduction discussion of we as challenges and how we overcome them, because I do believe it's everyone's job in crypto to help onboard the, like you said, the next billion users into crypto. um, it's our job. If you're working in crypto, I think part of your job is marketing. Everyone's in sales, everyone's in marketing. And then what is mainstream adoption? How do we define it? What are those challenges and how we can overcome them? Mainstream adoption, a lot of people define it as when you're using a technology and you don't even understand or realize that you're using that technology. A lot of people define that as mainstream adoption. So moving on here, when you look at mainstream adoption just in general, not specific to blockchain or crypto, you see these bell curves and this adoption cycle, and you could compare this to technologies from say 100 years ago, running water, electricity, automobiles, to cell phones, the internet, those type things. And obviously these technologies are adopted a lot quicker than when because of the other technologies. And then if you look at the bell curve of adoptions, you've got the innovators and early adopters, also kind of like a bleeding edge or a cutting edge, and you've got people that just love new technologies and they want to be the beta testers. They want to be out front. And then you got some people, especially with generational and age gaps, that they don't learn technologies as quick, and they want to wait. They don't want to beta test. They want to wait for a fully fledged project or that is easy for them to use. You got people that didn't get an iPhone when it first came out. They waited for the next generation and for everyone else to learn and figure those things out. Um, and then what does mainstream adoption for crypto even mean? Does that mean being able to pay your rent in crypto, or does that mean being able to pay your mortgage in crypto? Or the gentleman had the talk earlier this morning, like why can't we pay for a cup of coffee with crypto yet? So how we define mainstream adoption, if you ask 10 different people, they'd probably give you 10 different answers. But basically, we want to make it easier. We want to make it easier for the average person to use crypto. Is that using Ripple for cross-border payments or stablecoin for cross-border payments instead of the traditional Swift network, to where you're waiting 5 to 7 days and paying 3 to 5 middlemen, as opposed to one transaction that you have your money in a matter of seconds or a minute. So as we move, so this is another. So the graphic on the left is from my 2023 presentation. The graphic on the right is a newer one. So you can see the adoption based on different continents or different parts of the world, and that can be accredited to a lot of different things, including regulation, or bank, traditional banking and access to traditional banking, or people that do not typically have access to traditional banking, and they're more prone to start using crypto in their day-to-day life. So again, but we're still at that 5 to 15% is the estimate of the world's population that's holding crypto. However, if you think about it, that's a really difficult number to pin down, because how many wallets can one person have? So if you're tracking it based on the number of Ethereum wallets that have been created, or the number of users that are holding this, or is it just survey data? So I think there is a lot of opportunity for deviation in that range of how many people in the world actually own crypto. And now with ETFs and other things like that, then are you owning it in an actual DeFi wallet, or are you owning it in cold storage, or are you owning it as part of an ETF or something like that? So it really depends on, I guess it's hard to pin down what an exact number is for that. But I think we can all agree we're in the 5 to 15% range if you look at global. And then if you go back to this chart and compare it to this chart, that puts us in that early adopter stage, trying to make the jump to early majority. And so then what's fun is if you look at these traits, and I just found these online. I didn't come up with this, but traits that accompany or go along with those different adoption groups. And the early adopter traits are people that are willing to work through early bugs, right? Those are people that enjoy being a part of a beta program, or people that want to have something new because they want to be known as the person that always has new technology, as opposed to that next big step, like the early majority. They're more practical. They're like, okay, well, why do I have to set up all these seed phrases, or why do I need to do this? Why? So they're more data driven and logical, and not wanting to try new things. So it kind of does. That's a big jump to go from the early adopters to the early majority. One fun thing, so I travel for work a lot, seeing clients. And one thing I like to do is when I'm in airports and traveling, I like to wear different crypto themed t-shirts or clothing. And one thing I've been doing this for a couple of years, and I notice when, like, over time, people's reactions to my shirt is kind of like an unofficial market sentiment. So some of them these are kind of comical versions. So this is a shirt I like to wear, and obviously it's a joke. I am Satoshi Nakamoto, right? So wearing that shirt in an airport, the people that see your shirt, and you can see people see the shirt and they look at you with a question mark in their head, and they're like, what does that even mean? Versus people that see the shirt and laugh and give me like kind of like a little thumbs up across the terminal. I'm like, okay, so as like a market sentiment thing over time, how many people react to my shirt that way? How many people think it's funny? And that's my own little market sentiment of adoption. And I got one other one here I'll share is my mom thinks I work at Bitcoin. So again, it's kind of a joke because nobody works at Bitcoin, right? But my mom thinks I work at Bitcoin, and when I wear that shirt in public, or when I wear that shirt in an airport, and I'm able to judge people's reaction, is my own kind of litmus test of where are we on the adoption scale. And then here we are with the challenges, right? So I'll talk through these real quick. The regulation clarity, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, overcomplication, and bad actors. And with bad actors, I throw in a bunch of other different things. So FUD is not new. This is one of my favorite slides in any presentation I do. So these are old cartoons creating FUD about other technologies that have come along. Hat tip to Dan Held on LinkedIn is where I first came across some of these graphics. And then, the Pessimist Archive, I believe is what it's called on Twitter. I've got the link right there, is sharing these older examples of FUD against the anti-electricity. There's another story I love to tell, that there's a anti-automobile farmers association in Pennsylvania about 100 years ago. And they were trying to pass laws against the automobile industry. And they had a law proposed that if you're in an automobile and you're coming down this side of the road and there's someone on a horse coming on this side of the road, if you're in the automobile, you had to pull over on the side of the road and you had to have a natural colored tarp, and you had to cover your car with the tarp so the horse wouldn't get scared. And then if the horse still wouldn't pass you, you had to take your car apart and hide the car parts in the trees. So obviously we know, like, taking a car apart, covering a car with a tarp, but that was FUD of its day. So FUD is not new, right? But that is a challenge. Overcomplication. So I think about this a lot, and I deal with a lot of people because I help a lot of people onboard into crypto, into blockchain, and a lot of the terminology it's like it's a barrier to entry for a lot of people. And then moving along is challenges. I'd say bad actors. So bad actors, I think, is a massive category, and how all that fits in. Like, what are bad actors? But all these are hurdles to mainstream adoption. From pump.fun and people, the crypto Twitter saying XRP is going to be at a 1,000 per token. I could look at the tokenomics, and that'd be incredible, but like the tokenomics and comparing the market cap of XRP going to 1,000 is pretty wild. And then you've got like I've shared a screenshot right there of a phishing text I got. And then obviously SBF, and then the celebrity meme coin circus. All these, in my opinion, are challenges to mainstream adoption, because a lot of people that are, we can call them normies or whatever you want to call them, that have never been exposed to crypto. Unfortunately, these are some of the first instances that they have exposure to crypto, and they have a bad experience. And some people joke around. I've even made the joke that that's a rite of passage for someone new coming into crypto. But it could also be a reason for them to create FUD or to not want to get ever involved in crypto ever again. So again, these are challenges. All right, so let's pivot to solutions. Everybody knows Bitcoin Pizza Day. So Bitcoin Pizza Day was the first transaction of a real life good for Bitcoin. In the Bitcoin Talk forum, somebody posted, "Hey, I want to swap Bitcoin for a pizza." We all know the story, right? Okay, so in 2023, what I did was it was a Papa John's pizza that was used in Bitcoin Pizza Day. I went to all the major pizza outlets' Twitter account, and I said, I wonder if any of them have said anything about Bitcoin Pizza Day on their Twitter. Know that Papa John's, like, we're all talking about it, right? In 2023, not a single major pizza chain did anything about Bitcoin Pizza Day. Papa John's didn't even tweet on that day. Okay, fast forward to this year. Not only did Papa John's tweet and use the Bitcoin Pizza Day hashtag and make multiple jokes about Bitcoin Pizza Day, They also ran a contest, a promo, in the original forum that Bitcoin Pizza Day, the transaction, the barter was made. So, in my opinion, that, like, from a marketer, right, that is not adoption, right? That is not mainstream adoption. However, it is a step. It is a step that now these major brands are talking about, what could be called a holiday or a main event that is an annual occurrence in the Bitcoin crypto blockchain world. But the fact that they did the promo inside the forum, I thought was fantastic. And it shows just in a couple years, in 2 years from them not talking about it at all to them doing a promo, using the hashtag, making multiple jokes, I think is a nice step in the right direction for that adoption. And then let's talk about, regulations. So the United States, just in the new administration, just in the last couple of months, has made a lot of announcements with different organizations and agencies within the United States government to start clearing a path, for crypto adoption within, traditional finance. So obviously, you've got the ETFs that rolled out, the Bitcoin ETFs, and different, um, opportunities for traditional financial vehicles to incorporate crypto. So, like I said, like Bitcoin ETFs, there's other crypto ETFs, there's a lot more being proposed. So, that was kind of the first step. Now you've got the FDIC and the OCC, which are the government agencies in the United States that manage most traditional banks, are removing the blockers of previous administrations and are making it to where it's easier for traditional banks to interact with crypto. And then the one on the top is exciting. The Department of Labor, which manages retirement plans in the United States, is removing blockers to where retirement plans could interact and hold crypto as well. So again, these are the foundational steps that need to take. I'm not saying that these traditional banks now have to use crypto or have to interact with crypto, but the fact that from a regulatory place that they could, again, it's like Papa John's tweeting hashtag Bitcoin Pizza Day. It's not like Papa John's is going to accept Bitcoin in their stores tomorrow, but it is a step in the right direction. And it's these baby steps that are going to get us where we need to go as an industry. And again, I just mentioned the ETFs and retirement plans accepting crypto. So again, the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, and I know a lot of crypto purists or DeFi purists or Bitcoin purists do not like ETFs and do not like the fact that BlackRock is getting into Bitcoin or has been in Bitcoin. The same thing with Fidelity. But there's a trade-off, in my opinion, between purist and adoption, and those kind of need to work together. It's like Bitcoin maxis, right? Like, I'm not saying they're wrong on everything, but also that's not, in my opinion, I think that's infighting with the crypto industry that doesn't, it's not conducive for mainstream adoption and moving forward as an industry. All right, so simplification. Again, a minute ago, we talked about terminology and how I think some terminology is a barrier to entry for different people that are not necessarily have a tech background but want to get involved in crypto. And a lot of the terminology itself is a barrier to entry for them. And I think a lot of crypto-based companies, blockchain-based companies, I think it's our role or our responsibility to provide, maybe it's blogs or onboarding modules or glossaries of terms, or like ABCs of Web3, right? Like, what is a gas fee? I always pick on gas fee. Like, why do we have to call it a gas fee? Because that's the term that most people outside of the industry are not familiar with, as opposed to just a network fee or a transaction fee. How many people would be completely fine paying if on their billing statement they see network fee or transaction fee, and they're used to paying that? But when they see gas fee, it's in my opinion, overcomplicating a term. So on the screen, I've got a screenshot from YouTube. This is a great little like 3 to 5 minute cartoonized version explaining Bitcoin that I share this with a lot of people. And I think more tools like this, more platforms. Another one I love is Whiteboard Crypto on YouTube. And it's a great way to just, simplify a lot of crypto language, simplify a lot of heavy crypto terms or concepts that make it easier for this adoption and onboarding of the next 1 billion people. So I'm not sure exactly who did this, but this was a thing I stole from LinkedIn where someone took a lot of crypto terms, blockchain terms, and just, dumbed them down, for lack of a better word, into like super, super easy to understand, easy to use terminology. Gas equals transaction fee, consensus equals agreement, token equals digital item, right? Just making it easy for people, making it easy for new people coming in to understand. Another thing I like to do is try to put either through visual examples or analogies, explaining technical things with non-technical analogies, or using Web 1 and Web 2 terms to compare and draw similarities with Web 3 concepts. And I think when you're onboarding people, that makes things a lot easier to. And when you were talking about mainstream adoption, I think education is a huge component of that, and just bringing people in a way that they can understand it. One of my favorite analogies is, and this is a picture from The Sandlot, one of my favorite movies growing up about baseball. Okay, so if you look at a playground sports game, just a bunch of kids showing up and they're going to play a game. Maybe it's soccer, maybe it's baseball, whatever, maybe it's basketball. Those kids that show up, right? They know what game they're about to play. They know the rules they're about to play, and they're going to keep score amongst themselves, right? Okay. Use that bunch of kids playing a game to compare blockchain. Okay. There's no referee, meaning it's decentralized. If there was a referee, that would be central authority. Okay. All those kids understand the rules of soccer, right? And they all understand that's consensus. They understand the rules of the game they're about to play. The distributed ledgers, everybody's keeping the score themselves. So if you've got 10 kids out there playing 5-on-5, and 9 of them say the score is this, and 1 kid says the score is this, the 9 is going to win. So that's the distributed ledger in action, forming consensus. And that 1 kid can't change the score. Obviously, this is not a 100% applicable analogy, but when you're talking about trying to explain a very difficult concept to someone that is brand new to this, I think using analogies like this are very helpful when onboarding the next 1 billion people. And tools like this are, I think, what is going to get us there. And when you talk about, I say everybody in crypto's job is teaching and education and onboarding. And a lot of people might say, no, my job is this. I'm a back end guy. I'm a developer. I'm not dealing with that. Well, if you think about Bitcoin, right? So like Bitcoin is where it is because of the community. Not like Bitcoin does not have a marketing team. Bitcoin, does not have a paid social media team. Bitcoin doesn't even have social media accounts. It was the job of the community. The Bitcoin community got Bitcoin where it is today. And if you're looking at education, there's also a lot of education around traditional finance. And I think one of the hurdles of DeFi is that a lot of people don't even understand traditional finance. A lot of people do not even understand fiat. So a lot of people do not understand, the way that traditional financial markets work. So then they don't always understand the problems and issues with traditional financial markets to see how decentralized finance and DeFi and crypto and blockchain and all these things can actually help solve the problems if they don't understand the problems in the first place. Um, Also, safety and security. I always enjoy this little meme, you know, but onboarding people when we're onboarding people in a safe and secure way and explaining to them why we do things the way we do. If you explain to people the difference between custodial and non-custodial wallets, and then explain why seed phrasing exists the way they do, it makes it a little easier. And then, teaching people, hey, here's some best practices for password management, and here's how to make sure you store these, but teaching that as we onboard people. I've heard it described that, everybody remembers, I think, or I know I do. Everybody remembers when they got their first crypto and they were first brought into crypto, and they remember that hurdle, right? In that learning curve. And someone else had to bring them in, and I've been told that's like a trauma bond, right? Like you're bonded in trauma with the person that brought you into crypto, and you remember that. And but now you've understand that hurdle, and you're either not going to want to do it at all, or you're going to want to make it easier for the next person you bring in. And that's why I think it's all of our job to do this. And also, like, when I talk to people about crypto and blockchain, I'm putting in the right mindset. I'm not putting it in, you know, it's more like, hey, here's some real world applications. Here's some problems with the world today. And here's how I think blockchain and emerging technology can solve those problems, as opposed to we're going to get Lambos, right? And I think a lot of the people coming into crypto are worried about when they're going to get the Lambo, as opposed to what can the technology do that previous technology has not been able to do, or what can blockchain do that previous centralized industries and centralized communities have had hurdles with, that a decentralized community or decentralized technology through blockchain can do better, to make a better world for the future, as opposed to all of us getting our Lambos. So thank you all for having me again. I enjoy this. I look forward to it, and the community interacting together, in the Telegram game and everything. So again, there's my LinkedIn. That's the best way to follow me and interact. I talk a lot about crypto, as well as social media trends and different things like that. I saw some questions in the chat, so happy to hop over there.
Right. I'll be displaying them on the stage
Okay,
in a
great.
minute. And before that, yes, thank you so much, Scott. I mean, I think your lecture should be taught in schools, honestly. It was amazing.
Well, thank you.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Uh, so I've got some questions from my side for you. Uh, why do you think, why do so many scams happen in crypto compared to regular banking? Well, I think the question is, what makes crypto attractive to bad actors? Or you think it's one of those, logical fallacies, like what was
I
that?
think, number one, I just think it's a new technology, and it's kind of the Wild West. But if I think, if like all new technologies, until like people understand and learn and have that adoption, they don't know how to protect themselves. Like, but there's no, I think bad actors are everywhere. I'll also say that, like, there are bad actors in traditional finance, there are bad actors everywhere, there are scammers everywhere. I showed the scam phishing text I got about a Coinbase account. Well, I also get those about my Amazon account. So I do think bad actors are everywhere. There was a thing a couple years ago about how, um, you know, most drug dealers and terrorist organizations use crypto. Well, most of them actually use the U.S. dollar. so, so, I mean, I think it's more visible, and it's easier to fall prey to them because people are uneducated. And people do say, so one example is when the Trump coin came out back in January. Within an hour, 2 hours, on Dex trending, on like Dex Screener or Dex Tools, all of them, there were 40 to 50 Trump coins, because you can make it, you can make coins so easily. So it is a new technology. And so you've got all these new people coming into crypto, and all they know is, I need to buy the Trump coin. But you've got all these people in crypto that are like, well, I'm going to launch my own Trump coin. And it's just, the technology is so fast. But I think education can solve that. Like, people being more educated. Like, I used that when that happened. I used that as an opportunity to teach my community about contract addresses and make sure you have the right token contract address, as opposed to just searching for the name of a token.
Right. Yeah. As you claimed, I suppose that, well, the education is something that stops the bad actors, right? But who else do you think can stop the bad actors in crypto if there's no like a bank or government watching over them?
I think one thing that is difficult when you talk about, like, why is crypto so prone to bad actors as well, is because of the international element, cross borders. And so if one country creates some regulation, that's fantastic for that country, but that doesn't necessarily protect the citizens of that country from a scammer coming from a different country. So I do think it's the role of the community. I think it's, to, again, I think it comes back to education. And I also think a lot of it, there's some self-responsibility. If I'm new coming in, and somebody tells me about some meme coin, and I'm like, cool, I want to do this, I need some self-responsibility to not just trust the world. I need to do the research on it before I put $10,000 into this meme coin that I know nothing about. I kind of feel like that's my fault, right? Like, as adults, I think there's some self-responsibility to do your own research, instead of like trusting your college roommate who texts you. He's like, dude, you need to buy this meme coin. Put everything you got in it. Let's be adults.
Of course, yeah. 99% of altcoins fail within months, and unfortunately, that's something that is hidden, right?
Yeah,
And yeah,
you're coming in, you're someone else's exit liquidity. There's no utility for that token. There's no project. There's no roadmap. There's no real world application. It's a funny picture of an animal doing something funny, and they made it in a token and told everybody they're going to get rich. But the only people that get rich are the devs or the inside team, and they're wanting everybody to come in and be their exit liquidity. And it repeats and it repeats and it repeats. So again, I think there's some self accountability, and to be a responsible investor as an adult, to research what you're coming into. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And then crypto as an industry gets labeled as the bad actor because someone didn't do their own research.
right. People FOMO into scams because they only see the winners,
Yeah.
right? And I think we can take some questions from the audience now, Scott. Here they
Yeah.
are.
I think El Salvador. So El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment, mainstream. I think it's a good proof of concept for other countries. Now it's proved to be a, like, if you call it a success or not, like that, I think that depends on who you ask. But now you see other countries that have, I believe there's towns in Switzerland, different countries are accepting Bitcoin. There are different states in the United States that are now having strategic Bitcoin reserves. So I do believe that it option on, because I think adoption is multifaceted thing. You've got the users, but you've also got the countries and the regulatory and the organizational level. So I do think it's a step. Again, back to like, I got excited that Papa John's tweeted about Bitcoin. So I think all these are steps, and all of these added together, help us get where we're going. So CBDCs. So I think, to some that's controversial. But I do think if you wanted to skip, referencing the technology adoption chart of late majority, I think, that could be because, like I said, the screenshots of the OCC and the FDIC, just paving the way for traditional banks, especially in the United States. I know there's, a lot of other countries represented here, but the fact that regulatory that the banks can use and can interact in crypto, I do think all different types will help. One of the challenges, though, I do think, is traditional banks. They make a lot of money by doing things the traditional ways. So I think just traditional banks adopting this technology themselves might not be in their own best interest financially. It might be in the best interest of their customers. So we didn't really even talk about that, but like Swift, like say Swift versus Ripple, right? So Swift is a co-op owned by banks. So even though Ripple might be faster and cheaper for the customer, do the banks actually want cheaper for the customer, because that's less money for the banks? So there's some conflicts of interest there that we'll have to watch and see how it plays out. All right. MetaMask has 30 million users, but still confuses normies. 100%. Should we abandon wallet self-custody for mainstream adoption? I think this depends on the person, right? Like if I'm helping a friend, get into crypto, and they're not a tech person, right? And I know this would overwhelm them. I might suggest they just buy a Bitcoin ETF as their introduction to Bitcoin, right? Or their introduction to crypto. I'm like, hey, look, you already have an account with a broker that you could buy an ETF. That should, if you think about the swimming pool, that should be their shallow end of their pool. That should be them dipping their toes in the pool. But if I have a friend that's a developer or a tech guy, or adopts things quickly, I'm going to say, hey man, like we need to skip a couple steps, right? I do think, and also like, so usually when I onboard a friend or someone asks me, I usually have them start with a centralized exchange, because it is more user friendly. Like if they don't need to hold their seed phrases, and I just have them start there to buy something. But I know not every country has that luxury, but I think it depends on the person, and if you're depending on the concepts, you can overwhelm some people. But also when you talk about crypto purist, self custody is kind of the root of blockchain, of crypto. Self custody is the whole reason we're doing this, to be able to control your own assets. So I'd hate to just say we're going to abandon that for mainstream adoption. It kind of defeats the purpose. But I do think MetaMask and some, pretty much anything DeFi or DEX trading, all of those they do have a lot of hurdles, and it's an uphill educational curve. We really didn't even talk about this, but I don't think that crypto, if you look at the internet, a lot of people compare crypto to the internet and their growth, and they say that crypto right now is the internet in 1993 or 1994. So by looking at that, crypto still has not had its AOL disk moment. AOL was like sent out those disks, right? And that was the adoption jump for the internet, making the internet easy for everybody to get into. And I don't know that crypto has had that moment yet, but I would hate to say we're going to abandon self-custody. Maybe MetaMask, I know they're always working on things. Maybe they just need to have an AOL disk moment version of MetaMask to help onboard people.
Thanks so much, Scott. Yeah, and in general, thank you for that amazing session, really, on that highlighting the role of education and bridging the crypto to the mainstream. Honestly, again, as I said, this kind of talk that it should be taught in schools. And
Thank you.
yeah, I'll personally reach out to you for the collaboration if you don't mind. So
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
thank you, Scott, again. And unfortunately, hate to say this, but this wraps up the day 4 of our Blockchain Community Day 2025. And huge thanks to you, Scott, to all our incredible speakers, attendees, and everyone who made this day such a success. Right. See you, Scott.
Thank you.
And yeah,